All right. Hey, welcome everybody. So excited to have you here. Welcome to this webinar on ClickUp for beginners brought to you by ClickUp University. So just to introduce myself, my name is Elliot. I'm the manager of customer enablement here at ClickUp. And I did have a few housekeeping items that I wanted to go through before we get started. So first of all, the session length today is 30 minutes, so it's going to be relatively quick. We do want to make sure that we take some time, though, for both the chat and the Q&A. So just be aware, you should be seeing 3 tabs, one for chat, one for Q&A, and one for docs, which I'll call out in a second. If you're not seeing the Q&A or docs tabs, just let us know. We are going to take some of those chats that come through the chat and try to push them to our Q&A so that the folks that we have on the back end that are answering questions can have access to those questions, but just want to make sure that everybody has access to all of the resources in today's session. So the chat, again, is where you can kind of just submit, like, we'd love hearing where you're from. I can see people coming from all over. We saw people from Ghana and Colorado, and Washington State, which is amazing. And then there's also a tab for Q&A. So if you do have any specific questions about the platform or getting started, definitely drop those questions in the Q&A. If you don't see the Q&A tab, that's perfectly okay. You can drop your questions in the chat and we'll try to push them over to the Q&A box so our team can see them. And then finally, I did want to call out that this session is being recorded, so we will make sure to get you a recording of the session as soon as it's completed. And we also have some links to resources. So up next to the Q&A, you should also see a tab for docs. If you click on that tab, it should take you to, you should be able to see a resources doc there. That's actually going to take you to this ClickUp doc. And if I go to the title page here, you'll be able to see that this is a doc full of resources for you. So we've got a FAQ document here where we're answering common questions about all the features that we'll cover today. We've got links to our ClickUp University Beginners Certification, which you can go through in ClickUp University, and you can see the link will be right here. We've also got links here for product feedback. So if you've got feature ideas or if you feel like a feature is missing in ClickUp and you want to see if other people have actually submitted the same request, you can check out Canny and submit feature requests there. By the way, our team does absolutely go through Canny and develop the product based off directly off of user feedback. So user feedback is always highly appreciated. And then finally, there's links here for our Help Center. So if you ever want to connect with our Help Center team, ask specific questions about the platform, you can do so here. Now, I did want to just go over what we plan to cover today. So first, we'll talk through how to orient yourself inside of ClickUp. From there, we'll talk through how to create effective tasks. Next, we'll talk through how to collaborate with your team. From there, we'll talk about how to manage your work. And finally, I'll give you some tips to help you to keep track of what you need to work on. So if that all sounds good, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm in my workspace now, and the first thing I wanted to call out is when you first start using the platform, you may notice the sidebar here. So the sidebar is where all of your options and features will be available. And this is also primarily where your hierarchy exists. Your hierarchy is the place where all of your spaces reside. And your spaces are primarily going to be used for your teams or your departments. However, if you did have a really large cross-functional project, you may want to elevate that to a space level as well, just for visibility. Now, one quick tip that I have for you with regard to your hierarchy is if there are spaces that you don't interact with regularly, you can actually go ahead and hide those spaces. So I'd recommend taking the time to audit the spaces that you see here and just remove any spaces that you don't see yourself interacting with regularly. For my example today, I'll be a member of the marketing team, and let's just say I don't really collaborate that much in the software development space, so I'm going to go ahead and hide that, or the IT space. By doing this, I make the hierarchy much more intentional and easier to navigate overall because now I only see the spaces that I actually regularly interact with. And just a heads up, by hiding those spaces, you don't lose access to them, you don't lose notifications from them. If you get tagged in something, you still have full access to all of the tasks and information in those spaces. You're just hiding them from your view to make navigation more streamlined for yourself. All right, now as mentioned, let's just say that we are coming from the marketing team today. And I did want to give you a couple of tips if you're just starting to set up your first workflows. So here, let's go ahead and open up our marketing team space. You'll notice when you open the space, you should already have one single list available there for you to use. And that's my first tip for you, is that you don't necessarily need to start off with folders. You can actually start off with lists. And my suggestion here as a best practice would be to start off with 2 lists. So you're going to start with one list for intake, and you're going to add a second list for your ongoing projects. So let's go ahead and add that second list now. And I'm going to call my second list ongoing projects. And then I'm going to go ahead and also rename my first list intake, because this is where I'm going to house all of our newly incoming work. It's definitely a best practice to separate your intake process or your intake list from your ongoing projects. This way, you always know what tasks are new or incoming, or that you need to triage and potentially prioritize and then move into your ongoing projects. Also, you'll have a really clear view of all the projects that are currently in flight by going to that ongoing projects list. One final call out here is that to better manage that intake process, you should actually consider creating a form. A form will allow you to better standardize and streamline your intake process overall. If you want to add a form, all you need to do is on our intake list, we're going to go up to our views here. We're going to choose the form view. And then what's really cool is we now have a series of form templates that you can choose from. And in this use case, I'm just going to go ahead and choose our project intake form. Now you can see the form is already pre-generated for me with project name, additional details about the project, what is the priority of this project, and any relevant additional information. You also have the ability to drag and drop any of the other fields that you want to pull into this form as needed. We're not going to go into too much detail on form creation or utilization in this session, but just be aware they're there for you. And if you do want to learn more about forms, we do have an upcoming webinar on building your first workflow where we'll dive a little bit more detail into utilizing forms for your intake process. All right, next, let's hop back to our list view. And instead of using a form for this example, I'm actually just going to create a task manually. So let's just say that we're on the marketing team. We've had a recent meeting and there was a new idea for a new campaign. All I need to do is go ahead and to action on that idea, I want to convert that idea to a task. So I'm going to go ahead and choose add task. And let's just say that we had this idea for a brand new campaign that was called the Seize the Day campaign. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you're in marketing, operations, HR, IT, software. All use cases can use this same process of creating an intake list and then adding all of your new tasks to that intake list. The other thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to use AI to create my description. So let's go ahead and choose the Write with AI option for my description. I'm just going to paste in the name of this campaign, which is the Seize the Day marketing campaign. And I'm going to go ahead and hit return and allow AI to create a task description for me. And just for the sake of example, let's say we agreed with everything the AI came up with here. So now all I need to do is insert that description into the task. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and create the task. Now you can see that we've already created this task and we've got some default fields that we can use to triage and decide how we want to prioritize this. So we can do things like adding the assignee. And by the way, if you ever want to add yourself as an assignee, all you have to do is mouse over the assignee field and hit M for me, and it will assign it to yourself. You can add a due date here. So let's just go ahead and add a due date for this example. And you also have the ability to add a priority. Now that this task is set up, let's go ahead and jump inside the task and take a look at all of the tools we have within the task itself. So I'm going to go ahead and jump inside the task by clicking on it. This is going to open up my task view. So here you can see that now I can see all of the details of this task. I can see the task name. I can see all of the task default fields that are available here, like status, assignee, priority. If you wanted to do time estimates or time tracking, you would have that available here. You also have the ability to add tags here or any relationships to other work. Scrolling down, you can see that here is where that task description came in. So anybody that I tag into this particular task will actually know all of the context of this work based off the description that's already been added here. If I wanted to add subtasks, you'll notice that when I click on the subtasks tab here, I have the ability to also use AI to suggest subtasks for this task. So let's go ahead and do that. And then all we need to do is choose the specific subtasks that we want to keep. So let's go ahead and keep just a couple of these. And finally, I wanted to call out the details section. The details are where you're going to be able to add any additional fields or custom fields to this task. In this case, you'll notice that I have a reviewer field available. So I do know that I'm working with the marketing department head, whose name is Amy. I'm going to go ahead and tag her in as the reviewer here. And finally, I'm going to go ahead and now move over to my comments and @mention Amy and let her know that we've got this task ready to go. So to do so, all I need to do is hit the @ key. That's going to pull up all of my team members. I can go ahead and select Amy here. And from here, I'm just going to say, hey, Amy, I've set up this new project. I'm adding you as a reviewer. And by tagging Amy in this task, what I'm also doing is you'll notice that this bell icon just updated and went from 1 to 2. And now I've actually added her as a watcher on this task. Watchers are really important in ClickUp because you'll always want to keep your assignees singular. So we know that I am actually currently the one assigned to this task. We want to keep our assignees singular so that we know who is responsible for the task at a given stage of that task's lifecycle. But there might also be other people that need to be updated on the task or do review. And in this case, that's Amy. Maybe let's say that we also want to tag our teammate Alicia in here so she can get updates as well. Anybody who's tagged in as a watcher is going to get all of the same updates that the assignee will get. So as the task status is updated, as new messages get passed back and forth in the comments, as the description gets updated, any updates that you make to this task are going to generate notifications that will land in any of the watchers or assignees inbox. So let's actually go ahead and mark this task as planning. And finally, let's add one final custom field to this task. So as mentioned, we've got Amy who we've tagged in as a reviewer. And let's just say that we've got a review process that we also want to capture as a part of the work that we're doing on all of these new marketing campaigns. Instead of housing that process in our statuses, which could make our status set overly complex or long, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to create a custom field for that so that we can capture both the status of the task and the process of that review simultaneously. So here, let's go ahead and add a new custom field. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a drop-down custom field. And my suggestion to you as well, as a best practice, definitely take a look at drop-downs as maybe the first custom field that you explore. And a great place to incorporate custom fields like a drop-down is a sub-process, like a review process. So let's go ahead and add this drop-down custom field. And let's just call this Marketing QA. And we can add a description here. We also have the ability to fill this task with AI. So what this means, if you do have AI enabled, you can actually tell the platform to analyze your tasks based off of things like the task name and description and priority and updates, and actually create updates to your custom fields automatically. Now, in this case, we don't necessarily want to do that. I think for this process, we actually want the people to own it manually and make the updates manually. So in that case, I'm going to go ahead and switch this off, but we also have the ability to use AI to suggest options for our custom fields. So I'm going to go ahead and choose suggest options here. And now we've got not started, in progress, in review, approved, rejected. That looks pretty good to me. You'll notice that the AI also picked out some nice colors here. I'm going to go ahead and create this custom field. And now you can see that custom field has actually been added to this task as Marketing QA. And we can go ahead and update that. All right, this task looks ready to go. I think we're done with the planning stage. We can actually move this to in progress. And let's close this task and then talk about the next stages of our workflow. So now that our task has been created and set up, we can prioritize it and we can move it to our ongoing projects list, or we could move it to whichever location the person who's going to deliver on this task works out of. To do so, I could drag and drop that task into that location if I wanted to, but to be honest, that's not super scalable, and over time, it's not going to be the best way to do things. I also have the ability to use the ellipses here to get more options, and here I do also have the ability to move this task to another location by clicking on Move, and I could choose the ongoing projects, but that's not going to be really efficient. And so what we can do instead is create an automation. And so what we can do is go up to our automations here and say, anytime a task is prioritized as urgent or high, and we know who the assignee is, so let's say is assigned to myself, we're then going to move that task to the ongoing projects list for that person to deliver on. And depending on who the assignee is on that task, we could send it to any different lists for that particular person to deliver. So let's go ahead, create that automation. So that's now set up. And now we've got the beginnings of a workflow, right? We've managed our intake process. We could use a form to better streamline that process. Now we've got our intake list. As tasks come into this list, we can update them, prioritize them, and assign them out. And we've got an automation that automatically, based off of the assignment and priority, will send that task to the particular location where that person needs to deliver on it. So now that we've actually got our work in flight and the foundation of a workflow created, let's go ahead and take a look at how to better manage our work. So you may have noticed that I have this additional marketing space here. Let's pull that one up. The reason that I've got two is this one is already better established. So this is what a space might look like once you've got teams that have scaled inside of ClickUp and you've got multiple different initiatives running inside a department. So here you can see we've got campaigns and promotions, content management, we've got a creative and design team. We've got a lot going on. But what I wanted to call out here is if you were to click on the marketing space, you'll notice that I've already added a document called Welcome to the Marketing Team. And this document is basically like the landing page for our team. So here it says Welcome to the Marketing Team. And you can see I've got all these different documentation to help people understand how to work and engage with our team. I've got a Meet the Team doc that talks through all of our different team members. I've got information on what a marketing campaign is. I've even got SOPs for requesting a blog or starting a marketing campaign. And what's really cool is I can actually go ahead and mark any of these documents as wikis. And if you have AI enabled on the platform, you can even ask AI questions about how to work with the marketing team or who's on the marketing team. And the AI is going to prioritize any of your verified wiki documents and surface those answers to you first based off of the information that you've already added to the platform. So it's really easy to build an internal intranet that people can search and get any information that they need about your teams and how to work together. And by the way, all of this documentation that you see, it's actually all based off of doc templates. So it didn't take me that long to set any of this up. So now that we've set up our work, let's talk a little bit about managing our work. And I'm going to use this marketing space as my example. So in this situation, you can see we've got all of this work taking place inside the platform. If I were to try to navigate across the hierarchy here, that might be a bit of a challenge. So instead of trying to navigate between all of these locations, what I can do is go to the top level location, which is our space, our marketing space, click here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set up and establish a list for my team to work out of and find their work. So here you can see I've already created a list for my work for anybody on the marketing team. So anybody on the marketing team can come to our space level, click on my work, and find their work. And to set this up, there's a few tips that I'm going to give you here. So first of all, if I click on my work, right now it's pulling in all of the tasks from all of the locations within the space. So you can see all of the tasks in all of the lists and all of the folders here. If I were to try to scroll through here, you can see that there's just a ton of information. We're also separating things out by list and by status. And because we have multiple lists and statuses, it's really hard to see across all the work. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my grouping here. And you can see by default, we're grouping by status and by list. And if I wanted to, I could group by things like assignee, priority tags, etc., even custom fields. But in this case, I just want to make everything much more streamlined and easier to access. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to group by none. So it's this little trash can icon here, which sometimes goes overlooked. If I click this, now there's no grouping in this view. And you can see it looks almost like a spreadsheet. So it's much more streamlined and a little bit easier to navigate, but look at all the work that's taking place here. I mean, if I really wanted to sort and find my own work, it still might be quite a bit of a challenge. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use me mode. By clicking on me mode, I'm now only going to see the tasks that are specifically assigned to me. And by the way, this me mode is set for anybody who's coming to this view. So it doesn't matter if it's me or Alicia or David, whoever is coming to this view is going to see the specific tasks that are assigned to them. Now you might be thinking, well, it looks like you've got most of the tasks that are assigned to you. Why does David and Alicia have tasks assigned to them, even though you set it to me mode? Well, if I go ahead and open up my subtasks, you'll see that under this parent task, there are subtasks that have been assigned to me. So that's why they're being pulled up. But it's not that easy to find, right? Because if I wanted to find my specific subtasks, I'd have to go ahead and open up every parent task and open up those sets of subtasks if I needed to. So that's where our third option comes in. It's the option for subtasks. So instead of using the default of collapse all, I'm going to go ahead and show subtasks as separate tasks. And because we're in me mode, now I only see the specific tasks and subtasks that are assigned to me. And if I ever needed to see which task was a subtask, you'll see that it has this little subtask icon next to it. And if I mouse over the subtask icon, you can see it's going to show me what the parent task name is. Now that this view is all set up and looks great, I'm going to go ahead and click Save to save this view. And what you might also want to do here is just go ahead and protect this view so that other team members can't come in and make changes to it. So you can just say that this is going to be our team view. Anybody on our team can actually come to this view. It's going to be pre-set up for them to see their specific work, whether they need to see their tasks or subtasks. Everything is going to be much more easily organized here. The last step I might want to take is just to sort by due date. So here you can see I can choose a sorting option. I can sort based off of the due date here. And maybe if I have tasks that I hadn't sorted yet or I hadn't updated the urgency of yet, I can just go ahead and update that urgency so that I can very quickly and easily see, okay, these are the 4 things I need to focus on right now. So the last step I'm going to take here is I'm just going to go up to my work here. And what I'm going to do is add this view to my favorites. When you add a view to your favorites or when you add anything to your favorites, you have the option to name that doc, location, or task. And you can actually name it anything you like. It's not going to change the actual name of that item. So let's go ahead and name this marketing work. I'm now going to go ahead and save this to my favorites. And anytime I need to access this marketing work view, all I have to do is go to my favorites and I can find it here. And then one final tip is that you can actually pin your favorites to the top bar of ClickUp. So if I select this pin, now my views are right here for me to reference anytime I need. So if I'm working in a particular location or in a task and I get kind of lost inside the workspace, but I want to go back to that initial view, I can always go back to it because I've saved it as a favorite that I can very quickly and easily reference anytime I need. So that was really everything that I wanted to talk through today in terms of getting started. I feel like we covered a lot. So we talked about how to orient yourself inside the platform. We talk through how to establish your initial kind of workflow and list setup. We talk through some of the tools and features that you have in your tasks, how to set up your projects for success. And then finally, we talked a little bit about how to better set up your views for task management and work management. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to move things over into Q&A. And for any of the questions that have come through today, I'm going to go ahead and answer those questions live. All right, great. Let me just make sure that this is working. Awesome. Okay, cool. So thanks everybody. By the way, I saw so many questions come through during that presentation. So hopefully a lot of that information was useful to you. Let me just see if I can organize some of the questions that came through, and I'll put some answers together for you. So first of all, just wanted to call out for the resources and the recording. I know a lot of people are looking for the recording of what we just went through. Yes, at the end of this webinar today, we are going to provide you with the recording of the webinar. So everything you just saw will be sent to you so you can review it on your own time. I know there were some cool tips and tricks in there for workflow development, so you can definitely review that and then take the time to actually incorporate that into your own workflows. Let's see. And then, yeah, we had a bunch of different questions here. Oh, sorry, one more thing about the resources doc. We're also going to send you that resources document. So that resources document that I showed at the beginning, it's just here. We will make sure to get the link to this doc out to you. By the way, this is a ClickUp doc. So this is a link, a link to what we call public ClickUp doc. So you will have access to create docs just like this with your ClickUp accounts. And then there were a bunch of other questions that came through that I want to make sure that I cover. So first of all, can you use ClickUp for more than one business? So just be aware, everything here, the real beauty of using ClickUp is that your entire company can work in one platform. So all of our different teams, like our marketing team, our project management team, our sales team, we're all working together in one single platform. That being said, if you did have multiple companies that you're working for or with, you actually do have the ability to use more than one account. So you can see up here, I've got multiple companies or organizations that I actually work with via different workspaces. So it's one login to access all of your accounts, all of your different companies if you're a consultant and you work with multiple businesses. And then, yeah, there was one other question that just came through about everything we showed today being available on the free version. Believe it or not, pretty much everything you saw today is actually available on the free version. The only limitations that you'll have on free is that you won't have the access to AI. So AI is on unlimited or above, and AI is an additional cost in ClickUp. And then just be aware there are some limitations with the number of forms that you can create and the number of automations that you can create, but you do have access to forms and automations. That brings me to, we had a ton of questions on forms, so really excited to see how engaged everybody was and interested in utilizing forms. Just as a reminder, if you want to add a form to ClickUp, all you have to do, let me go ahead and go to my new campaigns list. Make sure you pick a location where you want those tasks to land when that form is submitted. And all you need to do is add a form as a view. So here in the plus view button, you'll be able to see the form view here. This is where you'll have the ability to add a new form and then work on that form from that view. Also, there were some questions about whether or not forms can be shared publicly or whether there's a URL that you can use. And the answer is yes. So forms can be shared publicly. If I go to my editing tab here, you'll notice I have all the options for my forms. So we can create, you'll notice that if I click on the link here, so we do have a public link that you can copy and then put on a website. We also have an embed code. So if you want to embed the form into a website or share that form publicly through emails, you have both of those options. Okay, and then there was a couple of questions about seeing all of your documents on a single task, and then also questions about subtasks and checklists. So let's dive into a task itself and just talk through some of the features that you have inside of these tasks. So if you open up the task, at the very bottom, this is where you're going to be able to see your attachments. So if you had a doc that was attached to this form or an attachment that was attached to this task, you would in fact be able to see that right here. And you do also have the ability to toggle between a tiles view and a list view. So if you've got lots and lots of resources that are linked to a task, the list view version might be easier for you to see across all that documentation. Also, there are questions about subtasks versus checklists. So this area here, the details area where we talk through our custom fields, this is where you'll have access to both your subtasks and your action items or your checklists. Just be aware, checklist items are going to be those simpler to do. So if you have a list of to-do items that you want to template and be a part of, a simple process that you want to be outlined for folks to be able to check off as they go through a task, I would use checklists for that. So, doing things like item 1, 2, 3, something like that. Alternatively, if you need all of the same power that you have in a ClickUp task, that's what subtasks are for. You'll notice when I create a subtask, we have all of the same abilities that we have in our tasks. So you can do things like track time, add different assignees. You can add custom fields to your subtasks. So your subtasks actually have all of the same abilities as your tasks. All right, and then finally, one last thing I wanted to leave you with, I know we're pretty much at time, is just I wanted to call out our newly added chat. So now ClickUp does come with chat available. You'll notice that I have a chat icon right here in the sidebar. Chat is actually a perfect replacement for if you're using Slack, if you're using Teams, if you're using Google Chat, or if your team uses WhatsApp. You actually have the ability now to use chat inside of ClickUp. There's tons of benefits to chat. I can't go through all of them right now. I would say one of the biggest benefits, though, is that because your work is taking place in ClickUp, you can link your chats right to your work. So as you're talking about certain work that's taking place, or if there's a conversation that you want to link back to a task, it's much easier to have that all in one centralized location in ClickUp, as opposed to having to copy and paste messages from your chats into ClickUp or copy and paste links to tasks into your chats. And if you're wondering why or how to enable chat on your platform, all you have to do is make sure you're an admin. And then if you're an admin, you'll have access to your settings. So if I click on my settings here, I'll have access to my Click apps, and your chat is a Click app. So you just want to make sure that chat is toggled on, and then you'll have access to chat. Just be aware that when you do toggle this on, you might get a message saying that you're on the waiting list. We are adding new users to chat every single day. So just be aware, you'll probably get off that waiting list relatively soon if it does put you on the waiting list to begin with. All right, now I know we are pretty much at time. I think the very last thing I wanted to call out here, just while people are still with us, is there was a question about if you're working with multiple teams, or if you want to move things and manage things across multiple teams or multiple departments. So in our example, we had moved this task from intake to ongoing projects, but you aren't limited in ClickUp to just moving a task to a new location. We also have the ability to add tasks to other locations. So you can actually have tasks live in more than one location simultaneously. So if this task were, let's say, like a blog post or something that our campaign team was working on, you actually have the ability to to add this to that additional list. So I can pick the campaign teams here, add it to my campaigns. Now this task lives in both locations simultaneously. So I can have this task available to myself for oversight, and I can use my specific custom fields for that oversight, while also providing access to this task to the other team. They can use their own custom fields and view that task in their own way. So as an example, if I go to the campaigns list here, you'd actually be able to see that task here. And you can see we're using actually different custom fields here in this different view. So definitely something you'll want to consider. If you're looking for more advanced features like building a workflow, definitely take a look into our upcoming webinar on building a first workflow. And just as a reminder, everything here was recorded. We are going to make sure to get that recording out to you. So I know we're a little bit over time. Just wanted to say thank you all so much for joining. Really appreciated you taking the time to join with us today. Loved all the questions, loved the chats that came through. Be on the lookout for our upcoming sessions, and looking forward to hearing about your continued success on the platform. Thanks again.